All right, folks. Welcome once again, everybody, to Irish Sports Daily Power Hour. I am your host here with Jamie Uyeyama. We also have Greg Flamong, our producer, that's going to join the show periodically, and he's got a very important role, does a great job. So we're going to have Greg come on periodically and offer thoughts and that type of thing. Before we get going, I wanted to mention it's a great time to sign up for irishsportsdaily.com. There's certainly a lot going on with the Notre Dame football program, and Jamie did a great job of his rewatch notes on offense, rewatch notes on defense. I had some thoughts. I know Greg did a fantastic job on his in-game commentary, all that type of stuff. So there's a lot going on right now with Irish Sports Daily. You can go to the front page, click on the premium section, sign up today. Also, if you want to watch the show live or watch it back on YouTube, you can find us. Search for Irish Sports Daily on YouTube and make sure, if you would, to like the content and also subscribe. That helps us a great deal. We'd greatly appreciate that. We're going to bring on Greg, and he's going to introduce our first sponsor for us. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, first of all, good morning, gentlemen. Or I should say good afternoon for people. It's morning for me out here. Everyone looks good, and we want people to look good. We want people to feel good out there, and you can do that with ESQ Clothing, of course, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang, Chicago's go-to for the best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. As Notre Dame reloads for the season, now's the time to refresh your wardrobe. Add the perfect suit, sport coat, tuxedo, or casual jacket for fall. ESQ's master tailors combine next-level craftsmanship with the finest fabrics to deliver a fit that's built just for you. Now with showrooms both downtown Chicago and in Winnetka. Book your custom fitting at esqclothing.com. Step into confidence with Chicago's finest. Mention ISD in your appointment. Receive 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com.
All right. Thanks, Greg, for coming on. We'll see you later in the show as well. Guys, this is I don't know. Yama, we just watched the Marcus Freeman press conference, and usually I don't take too much about what he says at heart. And usually I just kind of, I guess, push it to the side and that type of thing. And look, when things aren't going well, you got to figure as a leader how you're going to manage the situation. And we clearly have a defensive problem here, and we know this just by the results on the team or on the season and in the games. But just watching it back and that type of thing. And I'm going to start the show and just say I didn't really like what Marcus Freeman had to say. When he talked about the defense and what the situation is. And he's 100% right. It is execution. You don't draw up a play, right, that doesn't work. I mean, if everybody does their job, it's going to work. But at the same time, you've now tried whatever you're trying to do for 3 weeks, and it hasn't worked. And you've put yourself in danger of losing. You've lost 2 games because the defense has not played up to their standard. And then there was a lot of strife and opportunity for Purdue that probably shouldn't have been there had some things changed. And I've said many times on the show, I don't really read too much into Marcus Freeman. He doesn't. There's no incentive for him to tell you exactly what he's going to do. Therefore, he's not going to do that. There's also no incentive to throw somebody under the bus and all that type of thing, because that's not going to solve a lot of problems. But he keeps going back to execution, and I think that is true. They're not executing what they're trying to do. There's no doubt about that. But at this point, it seems to imply almost that you're saying the players are not executing. Well, whose job is it to get them to execute it? And I don't think that he's trying to say that we're doing a good job as the coaches, but it just keeps saying it over and over and over again. Execution, execution. I don't know how many times I heard Charlie Weiss say that. I don't know how many times I heard, Tyrone Willingham say that. Whose job is it to execute? Whose job is it to get the players to execute? And if what you're asking them to do is not working, and you've tried it for this long, is there a time where you have to say, okay, maybe we have to do something different? And so that I guess I have a problem with is I would like to see Marcus Freeman take a little more ownership in this. Look, you hired this guy, right? You had the conversations with this guy about what you wanted things to look like. And if things are looking different than what you thought, then guess what? It's your responsibility, right? You're supposed to oversee this. You're supposed to make sure that what you talked about between you and Chris Ash is actually happening and you're showing it on the field. So you can talk about execution and imply that is, the players not doing their job and not doing what you're asking them to do. And I think that's true. But guess what? That's on you. You're the problem here. You got to figure out how to coach your coaches. You got to figure out how to communicate with Chris Ash how you want this defense to be run. You guys got to come on some sort of agreement, and you need to start executing your job for the players to be able to execute their job. And to me, I'm just I that's the only kind of nit. And like I'm everybody knows I'm very pro Marcus Freeman. I think he's a great coach. I think he's doing a lot of great things, and I have no doubt that he's the man for the job. Don't take this any way possible other than me saying that. But at the same time, you got to take ownership in this. And when your team is mad, the last thing they need to hear is execution, execution, execution. What they need to hear is we're not doing a good job as a coaching staff. That's what they need to hear. All right. We're doing a terrible job as a coaching staff, and we need to do a better job of getting them prepared so they can execute. And I would have liked to hear a little bit more of that. Your thoughts here, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think I would have liked to see him take a little bit more personal accountability. If you're not going to call out, he's not his style. He's never going to call out a coach or a player by name. He's never going to do that, and that's great. Well, when things are going this bad, he should have take a little bit more personal accountability, because he has to be the guy to do it. And so I would definitely agree with that. Like, I think because it's not like the defense, it's like, oh man, there's just this mistake here, mistake there. No, it's bad defense. They went from like elite defense to bad defense.
I'll say this, Jimmy. It's badly designed, in my opinion. It's badly designed because you're not doing what this group of players is used to doing. And I understand you want to rush for, right? I understand. Then do something up front to confuse the defensive lineman, right? Do something, or to the offensive lineman. Do something up there to confuse them if you're going to rush for all the time. There's none of that. None of that. And it was very obvious in this game, more so than any, I thought. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I think that is the thing, right? Where I think really too, like I wrote that piece about how like it all starts up front and how like they aren't like that. And that is really the main issue, because what Al Golden did so well, he did like pretty much everything well, but like one of the things that he did so well was he knew that college offensive lines and college quarterbacks weren't going to handle pressure well. And there were things you could attack and they wouldn't be able to adjust to it. And most quarterbacks, most offensive lines, it was true. And that's why Notre Dame played elite pass defense. That's pretty much what it was. And even though they I wouldn't say Notre Dame didn't have first round picks across the board. They had very good players. I'm not going to say they're not good players, but they weren't like Ohio State where they have like first round corner here, first round safety. They didn't have that, yet they played elite pass defense. Well, part of it was what they did up front, because they didn't have also guys who were elite defensive line. They didn't have he's the guy I always bring up, but it's like Dexter Lawrence, because Dexter Lawrence is probably the best defensive tackle that I've seen in college football after Ndamukong Suh, in the last 10 years, right? Is like Dexter Lawrence for me, because he was unblockable. It's just like two guys could try to block him. It wouldn't matter. Well, Notre Dame doesn't have that. And even their guys that are good, they need help, and you got to give them put them in position to, and he would get, well, you get your best pass rusher, Isaiah Foskey, and Freeman did this as well. You know how many sacks Isaiah Foskey got off of like rushing against a tight end or rushing against a running back? Because the pressure that they were running set him up there. So, yeah, sure, Isaiah Foskey was good enough that he could beat some pretty good offensive tackles. But you know what's a lot easier than that? Going against a running back or a tight end. And you don't see that. You don't see that from Notre Dame's front with anything that they do. They don't set up the guys to win in those matchups. They ran that one pressure in the third quarter where Bryce Young got the sack. Honestly, that was the only time, other than the one pressure they ran against Miami this year, where Jared Dawson had the knock down the pass and they ran the stunt with him and Botello, where it looked like how Notre Dame has run pressures, where it was like everyone was downhill attacking. They ran 6-man pressure. Purdue had 6 in the block. Well, 4 guys blocked 3. 4 guys blocked 3. Yeah, one guy, Bryce Young won. And even if he didn't win, Osbury was free and was going to get us
yes.
And that's the whole point of that, right?
Amen.
And you could run, and they ran 4-man pressure where we're doing something where like, okay, well, they're going to blitz. They ran a zone pressure with Drake Bowen where, he's rushing, but he's rushing off the edge, but he's starting out basically like head up on the tackle. And he's got to work around the edge there. Abdul Carter would have a hard time winning in that situation based on how they're doing it and what they're looking at. So if that's the case, you're asking a player to do something that it's practically impossible to do. And that right tackle is not good, right? So anyways, here's the pressure that Greg's showing it right now. But look at that. Look how fast everyone is there. Look how quick this hits. There's nothing there to do. And you know what?
But look at the confusion too. Look at the confusion. Where are they coming? They don't know. If you rewatch this game, Jamie, it's 4 guys running straight up field the first 2 quarters the entire time. That's what it is. 4 guys running straight up field, and there's no confusion. They're not showing anything that's going to confuse the front. But then you look at this, and they're like, who do I block? And that's the difference. That's the difference between what we saw last year and this year. If you rewatch the game, it's 4 guys running straight up the field, bull rushing. And look, if your players can't beat Purdue's offensive line with 4 guys like that, it ain't going to get better against Miami. It ain't going to get better against better quality players. Exactly. If you can't beat Purdue, you're not going to beat anybody with that scheme. Go ahead.
And I think one of the things too, Mike, is that if you do the same thing over and over again, you just make it easy. You make it easy because for the line to just know, well, they're going to rush 4 straight up.
Yes.
And they ran a couple TT stunts, like tackle stunts, and it worked well. And that's where Heinisch got the sack.
Did one sack.
Yes. Him and Rubio did actually a good job with those. Rubio played a great game, by the way.
He did. Fantastic.
He played a really good game. But Notre Dame played outstanding versus the run in this game.
Yeah.
And that is one of those things too, when you look at it. And I was talking with Greg before the show, and there is a thing that you probably don't make enough of, the fact that if you think about you're starting 2 true freshmen.
Yes.
In this game. The only guy who was back from last year that was starting in this game, because Schuler was out in the first half, was Christian Gray, because Moore is out obviously.
Yeah.
So you only have one guy from that secondary last year, and I get that, right? I totally get that. And so those guys are going to get beat, right? It's going to happen. So those guys are going to lose some. You expect it. There's an expectation there. But there's just not enough help there for what they're calling coverage wise, for what they're calling, pressure wise, to give those guys help, to make it easier for them. And there was like a situationally too, I think, and Greg and I were texting about it as well. And I wrote about it in the rewatch notes, like the play where they score the touchdown, Nitro Tuggle, scores that touchdown on Mark Zachary. Hey, it's a great throw. It's a great catch. That's one of those things where it's like, okay, he gets beat, fine. It's a great play. And Notre Dame did get pressure on that. Rubio was in his face. So you're like, okay, tip your hat to them. But it's the call that makes that terrible. And why? It's not just the result. It's the call, because there's 13 seconds left in the half. They have a timeout. Yes, they have a timeout. But because of that time, and that 13 seconds left, it's either they have two options. They could throw it underneath and try to get something to close, and maybe they take one more shot at the end zone, or they're taking a shot at the end zone. And so you have two options as a defense coordinator. You say, okay, well, we're going to play like a 2-shell or a 3-shell even, and not going to let anything. They're going to take a shot at the end zone. We're going to be covered there, and say, hey, we'll give you the underneath, take the underneath, and kick a short field goal. Right?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And then, or you say it's 13 seconds left. They're in a spot where it's like it's a makeable field goal, but we can push them out to make it either a long field goal, or maybe they're out of field goal range. So we're going to heat them up with pressure here and do something. Notre Dame rushes 4, but they play cover 1. And with Jalen Stroman as the middle of the field safety, and it just was forgettable personnel and all that too, but it just, that call in that moment is a horrible call. Yeah. It is horrible. And
here's what's worse about it, Jamie. Here's what's worse about it. And this is what's concerning. If you remember, there was a timeout there because the play before was juggled. So the Notre Dame staff had plenty of time because there was a review there. They had plenty of time to sit and figure out what they were going to do, because there was a review as to whether that guy caught the ball or not. So there was like 5 minutes of them going back and forth looking at this, where the staff could sit and discuss this. And that's the call. And so Marcus Freeman can say it's not the call. Yeah, it is sometimes the call.
Yeah, that specific one, 100% is the call. And you can say in that case too, because Marcus Freeman would know the call before they call it, where he's got to say, hold up, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
No, we can't run this. Why are we running this? Because even if that's Leonard Moore, right, and that's not Mark Zachary, that's still not a good call. And Leonard Moore makes a great play, let's say. It's still not a good call. It's still a bad call. So, and there's too many of those. So it's not just the execution. It's more than that. And the thing is that, and it is true. The players are too talented, even when you're replacing those guys and they're not there. The players are too talented to be this bad. They were second in adjusted EPA per play on defense last year. So basically, second best defense in the country, basically. They're 1/10 through 3 games. So it's not like, okay, well, they're adjusting to the new system or whatever. Okay. They're taking a step back, and then there's new personnel. And okay. So say they're in the 50s or something like that. 1/10. They're one of the worst. They're one of the worst defenses in the country. And for how good the defense was in camp, and he just said it again today about how well they played in camp, for how talented everybody on the beat. It wasn't just like, us or anyone. Everyone on the beat was like, this defense might be the most talented defense they've had in decades. Right? Like, that's what everyone was saying, even though they lost those guys. That's what people thought. Chris Ash said it was the best, best in defense he inherited since 2014 Ohio State. and yet they stink. Like the defense stinks. At least the pass defense stinks. It's inexcusable. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I have something about that when they were talking about the how the defense was good in camp and now it's not. And I want to throw this to you guys because it kind of dawned on me is like the issue is, and this is where I look at Ash and I think about, it's not the execution, it's this, that, why we called what we called in camp. And you know this, Jamie.
Yeah.
In camp, you're just running stuff. And so is the offense. There's no game plans. There's no tape. There's no, I'm putting this in to beat this defense. I have to get into a call to
every
beat.
period is situational.
Every period is situational. Like that is when it is just your players versus their players. When it is just, I'm calling whatever. And my guys are going to be talented and make it happen. And in that environment, Notre Dame's defense was dominant. And then they get into an environment where you have to adjust to the offense, when you have to make a situational call, when it's you against the opponent's offensive coordinator. Through 3 games, they have been bad to your point, Jamie. That is the problem.
Yeah.
That is where it lays bare. They were good when there were no game plans and there was no pressure and there was no, I'm adjusting to you. There were no iPads. There were no tendencies. There were none of that. Get into games against opponents with offensive coordinators and staffs and analysts, and they're getting cooked over and over again. That is the damning part.
Timing of when they call. Exactly.
That is the damning part. It is not the players. It is not the schemes. It is none of those things. It is when you call it and how you adjust. And they're not doing
calling at the right time, knowing what this is what they're going to call, or this is the area of the field that it is. Yeah. This is like also just knowing matchups, understanding, because I haven't seen this too, where like I mean, and this is just friggin' football. This is like you can coach peewee football and just do this. Their left guard stinks. Well, I'm gonna run games. I'm gonna run pressures. I'm gonna do things to mess with that guy the whole time because he can't block it. He won't be able to do anything. And there's just a complete lack of any of that. It's kind of like when the other team knows, it's like, well, Mark Zachary, true freshman's in the game. Guess one of these plays we're taking a shot up top. It's called coaching. Like that is just, it's like literally it's peewee. That's the kind of thing like that is any level of football. And I just don't see that from Notre Dame's defense, where I saw that all the time from Al Golden, and frankly from Marcus Freeman when he was the DC, and from Clark Lee. Clark Lee was outstanding at it too. Yeah. From Mike Elko, all the guys leading up before it. And yeah, you can have like, and the thing is too, is like Greg said, you can have good scheme. It can be like, hey, this is a good call. Like this is a good thing. But if it's not in the right situation and it's not playing against the competition that you're facing, and you aren't adjusting to what is going on in the game, or adjusting to the talents of your own players, which clearly they have not done, especially with the pressure stuff, because those guys ran that pressure like they were let out of jail. Like they were like, finally, they called this. Oh my, like, I don't think Jalen Sneed, I don't even think he even cared about getting the quarterback. He was like, I am going to destroy this running back in protection. I just need to feel something, to be alive. That's how those guys ran that pressure. And it's like, because Greg and I spent like the last 2 years breaking down this defense, where we were just like, we'd have like a Tuesday show, or, we were looking at film, we're looking at Adult 22, whatever. And we just be texting each other being like, wow, this is great. Like, just because there was so much there where you just saw, and we heard that, man, Matt reported it in camp too. This is a violent group. And I don't want to for 1 second think the kids aren't playing hard. They are playing hard. It's not that. It's not an effort.
It shows
thing
up on
at all.
film. Yeah. Yeah.
It
No,
shows
it's
up.
great. Especially
They're-
this last game, defensively, they played hard. It's just it was a bad situation, bad scheme. Now, I saw somebody say, like Mike Goolsby, who I know very well, saying, that the off-ball coverage is not, an ideal. They're not playing it, and the players don't like. First of all, I think you have to understand, Dallas Golden and Mark Zachary is 175 pounds. You don't want to put him up against a man receiver and try and play press coverage with him. He's just not physically able to handle that at this point. And, sure, you'd like to see him bump and things like that, but he's just not physically ready to do that. And so that plays part in it. And I think it says a lot. What you're talking about, Jamie, is that you have some young kids who really haven't played it all, and physically they're not able to play what Leonard Moore can play at this point, and what Christian Gray has played in the past. But, they're not doing it with Christian Gray either. He's not up there. Now, again, a lot of people think he has a shoulder injury, so that may be part of the reason he's not playing physical at the line of scrimmage. Who knows? But just rewatching it, Notre Dame's linebackers, Jamie, they're great coming downhill. When you watch Drake Bowen and he run blitzes, he causes so many problems when he does that.
Yeah.
And he is great at that. That's where you want.
That's one
but
of
they
his
hardly do it.
strengths, yeah.
They hardly do it. And it's like, and KVA is the same way. When he's playing forward, I mean, he'll take your head clean off. And that is a mentality these guys are used to playing with. And now they're playing off, back, reactive. It's not the same. And so Marcus can say, well, we're running the same things. No, you're not. You're not. You're not running the same things. You may be running the same schemes, the same coverages and things like that, but you're not playing the same way. It's night and day. It really is. So here's the thing that also bothers me. And then we're going to go talk about the offense, because we've had enough negative, and now we're going to talk some positive, because there's a whole lot of positive on the offense. But here's the thing that concerns me most, Jamie. Nothing changed in this Purdue game until Marcus Freeman was upset, right? When he was upset, then all of a sudden things started to change. Now, why that happened, who that happened, what happened, I don't know. But it was obvious he was upset and everybody else was upset, and so things started to change. But here's the thing that I'm scratching my head about. Was there no conversation after A&M? Was there no conversation after Miami where you go in there and say, hey, what are we doing here? This is not working. Did he just let Chris Ash just do whatever he wanted? Oh, okay, that's fine. Hopefully we'll get it better next time. Is that what happened? Because if that's what happened, I got a problem with that too. You know what I mean? You can't, you have to coach your coaches, right? And you don't hire a guy. Like, I can't hire Jamie Uyeyama for his expertise and then go in there and after your first 3 stories say, you're doing this all wrong. You hire somebody and let them do their job until they fail. But when they're clearly failing, you have to step in and as a boss,
you have to help them out.
And you got to say, hey, what's going on here? How can I help you? What do we need to do to get this better? And it just seems crazy that we saw the same thing at the beginning of Purdue that we've seen, and probably even more vanilla. But I think it was vanilla because, as you mentioned, you got 3 new starters in the back end. That's a nightmare for any defensive coordinator. So we do have to give Chris Ash some, leeway there, because that's a difficult situation for anybody. But I'm just surprised that there wasn't any. It just doesn't appear there was anything said or done. I could be wrong, but you would think if there was, there would change some things. Having said that, because of the 3 new starters back there, maybe there was a conversation. They couldn't do anything about it because of those 3 guys. But if there was no conversation, I got a problem with that. You got to go in there and fix it. And when Marcus was talked about it today, he said they had a very, strong meeting. It wasn't pleasant. I think that's good. What is going to be the result, though? And that's going to be the interesting thing. What is the result of this meeting? Was it made it very clear that, hey, this is the way we're going to play defense this moving forward. We were talking about this on the board. It was the first question I asked everybody today. We got some great discussion on it. But to me, my thoughts were, as a staff, Marcus Freeman needs to go into the defense of staff and say, okay, look, I'm not going to sit here and point fingers. I want to hear what you think is wrong. I want to hear what you think is wrong. I want to hear what you think is wrong. And I want to hear what you think is wrong. And then I'm going to offer my opinions. And then we're going to sit down and we're going to figure this out. All right. I think that's the way you got to handle it if you're Marcus Freeman. And then if you get too much blowback from people, then you need to be the boss and say, okay, I let you guys speak your piece. I agree with this. I agree with that. I agree with this. I don't agree with that. I definitely don't agree with this. And we're going to do it this way. I hope that that's what happened, because I think if it didn't, and you're too worried about upsetting people, or you're too worried about, offending people, you've lost the battle. So I want to hear your thoughts real quickly on that, and then we'll talk offense.
Yeah, I think obviously it's a tough situation because you hire somebody to do a job, and you don't expect to, after, frankly, 2 games, and expect to be like, hey, we got to change. Like, no one expects that. And I think he mentioned it about how his first couple games went. And I think he wanted to give Ash some grace because
you have to. You
right?
have to.
And you have to, right? Because otherwise, why hire a person, right?
Yeah.
You hired a person for a specific reason. You have to. But I also think that you hire somebody and for a specific reason, but also what he was saying in terms of, like, not changing as much, or if it's not broke, why fix it? There is a lot that's different. There is a lot that's different, and I don't know if Marcus Freeman thought that that's what was going to be the case, or if he didn't think that. He thought maybe Chris Ash was going to be more adaptable. I mean, I thought he would be. One, because he said it. Also, because I thought he'd be dumb to do it. And I guess, it's kind of proven out that way. That's so far. But I just look at, like, where Notre Dame is at right now in terms of, who they're playing and all that going forward. And I know, like, they're taking it week to week, and that's just the way it is. And I get it. But when you're in a situation where you have this talent that you thought that you could be, like, this kind of contender, and you're going to be this kind of defense, and you're playing these teams on the schedule that, like, you play a lot of really good offenses. There's not many offenses that, you are going to play against that are going to be bad going forward. You're playing, like, some really, really good offenses, and you've seen how they've played so far. It's like, how much better is it going to get? How much better is it going to get? So you kind of have to look at it from, like, hey, like, this is, with this week, they're playing against one of the top offenses in the country. I know we'll get into it after, but, like, it's the kind of offense, and Bobby Petrino is a very good, maybe not the best guy in the world, but he's a really good offense coordinator.
He's got to be licking his chops.
He probably thinks he's going to eat this defense alive, and based on film and based on what he's
gonna,
seen,
yes,
he's going to.
If they call it like this, he's gonna. You're darn right he is.
And so I don't know. It's difficult because you just don't see where you can say, hey, there are some things that are fixable and all that kind of stuff too, but how much are they willing to actually do? And even if they have those kind of meetings, it's like, what are you going to actually do to really fix it? And it's just going to have to play out on the field, and we'll just see.
Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, Jamie was talking earlier about feeling alive, and It's like you guys are kind of blowing off steam right now, and I like to blow off steam and feel alive when I'm participating in an athletic event, something like pickleball. Mike, and you can do that with H2 Pickleball. Hopefully, you were able to take advantage of their tournament that was on campus for the Purdue game. Hopefully, you were able to watch Reggie Brooks and Steve Berline take on Ian Book and Josh Lugg. And that's the great thing about pickleball, guys, is that you can have recent Notre Dame college football players and Josh Lugg and Ian Book play against some older gentlemen, some older legends at Notre Dame like Reggie Brooks and Steve Berline. It still can be very exciting. If you want to get into pickleball, of course, that H2 Pickleball was founded by Notre Dame alum Todd Hill. He's teaming with fellow alums Jack Gibbs and Will Howells, who's a top 10 pickleball pro to bring Notre Dame fans to Notre Dame Pickleball Crew League. What better way to connect with Notre Dame fans and engage than through pickleball? Membership is free, and members will have access to special pickleball events and discounts. Of course, the first event was the tournament with Purdue to get involved with H2 Pickleball and to take advantage of the upcoming events that they have. Contact Todd at h2pickleball.com or 574-339-5195 to join the league. Be sure to visit the H2 Pickleball facility in Mishawaka when you are in town. H2 Pickleball is located at 55801 Evergreen Plaza Drive in Mishawaka, Indiana. And I do want to put up this super chat from Eric Fasano because this came up in the Marcus Freeman press conference. He asked feasibility of moving Leonard Moore to field cornerback and or matchup versus team's best wide receiver when he's back. Marcus Freeman did say it has been discussed. It is a possibility. They do want to leave the option open to play some zone stuff. So if you're moving Leonard Moore around, it kind of is a tip off to the defense that they're in man. I do think you can still play zone if that's actually a good way to design a zone defense, but whatever. That is what he said. So it is possible that they could bring on Leonard Moore and he could follow a team's best receiver around if they feel like that's necessary. It has been discussed.
All right, Jamie, we'll have to see what's going to change moving forward. I think our job is to have our ear to the ground and try and figure this out. But I know Marcus Freeman, there's nothing that's going to leak out. But the only other thing that I would say that's kind of disappointing to me is I think if you're a boss, right, what's the point of the captain's meeting, right? So you go in there and you talk to your captains. Those guys on defense, they know the situation. And we've heard that people were upset that things were changing, right? The people were not very happy with the way things were changing, and they didn't think it was for better.
Like how much it was changing. Yeah,
exactly. So that's the point of having the captain's meeting, right? That's the point. The captains report to the head coach how the team is feeling, right? And so again, maybe this is just the inexperience of Marcus Freeman, but hopefully he learns from this moving forward and they can figure this stuff out moving forward. And it's not another issue down the line. All right. I wanted to switch to offense, Jamie. Man, rewatching that was a thing of beauty, wasn't it? I mean,
it was great.
Mike Denbrock did a great job on play design and doing those things, but just the execution, my gosh, I haven't seen something like that. It was across the board. I'm glad that Marcus Freeman brought up the wide receivers. Mike Brown takes a lot of heat sometimes, or was. Just an outstanding job by the wide receivers in blocking. Eli Raritan did a really good job almost on every single block that he had. Ty Washington did a good job on his blocks. But offensive line across the board, I couldn't name one I was disappointed in. Yes, Anthony Knapp missed the one play. But when you rewatch it, I mean, no bust. There was nobody that really came through and just blew up a play, really. I'm going to just say it right now. Gerby Lambert, first-round draft pick. No doubt in my mind. I feel as confident saying that than I ever did at Joe Alt at this time. Gerby Lambert, first-round draft pick. Man, you watch that kid play, and he is just killing dudes in there. And it's only going to get better. Now, is he a left tackle? Is he a right tackle? Is he a guard? Could you imagine having him and Jagasaw as your guards? Holy crap. But just to see him and Emil, and I got to give Emil Wagner a ton of credit in this too. We were always wondering, does Emil have that mean streak? Does he have that? Well, he is just killing guys in there as a run blocker. as an undersized run blocker. Just very, very good execution amongst the Notre Dame offensive line. Hats off to Joe Rudolph for getting these guys together in a short period of time. I was not happy after the Miami game. I thought they played better against A&M, but still some problems. Purdue's not a great team. There's still going to be problems with this group, just like there is every other offensive line. But when you ask an offense to do something or a group of people, you couldn't ask for a better execution out of this group. I was very, very impressed with them. And then, of course, we know the backs did their thing. The wide receivers did their thing. We'll get to CJ Carr, but I'm telling you, I just was so excited about watching this offensive line after I got done. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought they did a tremendous job, like all around. And, that sack that they gave up, that Knapp gave up, was the only pressure that was credited to offensive lineman the whole game. Obviously they didn't throw the ball a lot, but still, like, they gave up no other pressure.
And had all day to throw. I mean, he had all day.
All day. And just run wise, it's never going to look perfect across the board every time, but it's kind of incredible how often it did look close to perfect. And I thought they worked together so well, just like, the combination blocks and like guys getting to the second level. They ran counter trade to the left a couple times with Gerby and Emil Wagner pulling, and that looked great. They ran it 2 times for 29 yards in the game. It is interesting that, like, when Knapp was down for the one play that they didn't bring in Prescott, they moved Gerby over. And then Absher came in at right guard. So that's something to monitor kind of going forward there. What also just shows kind of like their confidence in Gerby and kind of how it's gone there.
I agree.
And I think in hindsight, now that we've seen, not that I knew that Miami had a good defensive line, I knew those guys were good, but maybe not how good. Miami might have they have the best pair of defensive ends in the country, I think, so far. Mm-hmm. Like those guys look unblockable. They were unblockable versus Notre Dame. They absolutely destroyed Florida as well. Like they've destroyed everyone they've played, and they're going to do it the same to anyone they play in the ACC. So I think in hindsight, you look at that and you think, well, it certainly wasn't a good game for Notre Dame's offensive line, but it's a lot more understandable now. And then you've seen like the good kind of growth from that group. And if they're going to play like that, then you could just basically what they did with Love and Price, where those guys, you can just keep handing the ball off to them and just forget it. Like no one's going to stop him.
Especially if Carr is as accurate as he was on the deep ball. You can't stop that. You know what I mean? It's just, if you got that kind of a running ability and then you have the ability to throw the ball deep like Carr did, it's very, very difficult to defend. And so I'm very excited about where this thing is headed. It's going to get even better, and it's going to be so much fun to watch. And they still don't have what I'd consider an elite wide receiver, but they got a lot of good ones. I love seeing Faison catching the ball better. I've been critical of him, so got to give him all the props in the world for working on his hands, and he certainly is becoming the player that we want. I'd love to see Greathouse get more involved, but again, I think because they're a little bit concerned about having CJ throw too much into the middle of the field at this point. I mean, it is only game 3. That's going to open more. We're going to see more of that in the future. But I just love seeing CJ Carr. I mean, man, Notre Dame's got a quarterback, man. This is going to be fun. And the one question I've always had with him is how accurate is he on the deep ball? Man, he threw some just buttes out there. And that is so encouraging, because the other thing that stands out to me more than anything, Jamie, is there are what I call stats quarterbacks, and then there are guys who move the chains, right? There are a lot of guys who, are going to complete 62% of their passes, right? And their stats look great, but on third down, they can't deliver, right? This kid delivers on third down. I mean, he finds a guy, quick decision, ball out, and This is game 3. I mean, that's remarkable. You play any zone against him, and he just picks it apart. He knows exactly where to go to the football, which is just rare. It's just, I really think this guy's got a lot of potential, and I'm very excited about it, especially when you see his ability to throw the deep ball. But I think a quarterback worth his salt is a guy who can convert on third down, and we've seen time and time again already with CJ Carr. He's money on third down, and that's when you got a really good quarterback, as when the guy can convert and he's just consistently good and executes on third down. That's exciting. So thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, they were 5 for 5 on third down before they took the starters out. So they were perfect on third down. He was perfect. And I think exactly what you said, decisive, right? Like the ball's out and the ball's accurate. It's when the ball should be thrown. It's like top of his drop, that guy's open, boom, gone. Ball's out. And I really think too, like Greg's throwing up a Carr on third down through 3 games, 9 of 14, 115 yards, 1 touchdown, 6 first downs. That's pretty good. And I think you look at it when you look at the offense, and obviously like those Price and Love are special. We already knew that. No one's surprised by that at all. But when you have teams like the very first play is a perfect example where they have 8 in the box. They're like, okay, well, we're going to stop Jeremiah Love. That's what they want to do. And then, you run play action. They don't have anyone in the deep middle of the field. And you can, throw a 66-yard bomb to Malachi Fields, like throw a dime like that. Both of those deep balls, the other one to phase on too was a dime as well. And, he's 5th right now in PFF's deep ball passing grades. Obviously it's only 3 games in, but, connected on 9 of 14 attempts that have gone longer, really 20 plus yards down the field. Like that's real good. An awesome percentage for, deep throws. And the thing is that if you look at, where they're at right now, 18.2% of his attempts have been deep targets through 3 games. That's 18th in terms of the highest frequency in college football this year. Obviously the first game, they weren't throwing it deep that much either, right? Because they were getting the ball out so quick. But last year, Riley Leonard, I mean, that was definitely like a huge element that was missing from the offense. 10.6% of deep attempts, 132nd, right? So it's like when you can throw deep and be accurate deep, and you have that threat of that means you're going to get lighter boxes, and you're going to be able to run the ball more. And then if they do come up and they're like, okay, we got to do what we can to stop, because everyone wants to stop the run with less bodies. The reality is that even if Notre Dame's offensive line is just playing okay, the backs can make guys miss, and you can still move the ball. That's how good the backs are. And when you can throw it over the top, and they have enough guys, like they have enough options that they can throw it deep. And I think, certainly they didn't have Fields last year, but they had more options than, being 132nd in deep pass range. It just wasn't Riley Leonard's strength. So it opens up the offense in all kinds of ways when you can be explosive running and explosive passing. And that's why I really think they were, other than the strip sack, it was pretty much close to a perfect performance from them. You look at like where they're going, and this is like you said, game 3. I know Purdue doesn't have a good defense, but they're going to carve up a lot of defenses. Like Arkansas does not have a good defense as well, by the way. So get ready for a shootout on Saturday, but like it is like, and it's obviously going to be tougher on the road, second game on the road and all that. But like, man, I think the sky's the limit for the offense. I really do. I really do. I thought, because I just like the steps they've taken. It's not going to be this perfect every game. Obviously, it's not going to be this perfect every game, but you just see so much good from them. And you look at the talent, and I really think they can absolutely be a top 10 offense in college football this year. I think, by the end of the season, I think that
Yeah.
is on the
I,
table.
I think so too. Look at those numbers: 19 to 28, 516, 4 touchdowns, 18 yards per attempt, 68% passing, 10 plus yards. I mean, that's exactly what you want. And you're talking game 3. And as you mentioned, they didn't really throw that much on deep. The one stat I'm sure Greg doesn't have handy, but I would like to know is offensive penalties. There's been hardly any. Hardly any.
Yeah.
And that's a sign of a well-coached team. There's hardly any holding, hardly any false starts. Like Washington got a holding this last game. I thought it was I'm not sure about that, but you're going to get every once in a while. I think Eli got one before.
I thought those were both good blocks to be.
I did too. I did too. I mean, come on. Problem is you're on the outside, and it's everybody's there. Looking straight at you, and so it's not as congested and as it is at the offensive line. But just a well-coached offense.
By the way, just because you mentioned it, the penalties, I just looked it up, Mike. They're 4th right now in penalty yards per game.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that if you look at when you're doing that, you're doing a lot right. And
you're well coached, in that regard. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So, and I think that's encouraging. It's just you got to fix this defense, and we have to hope, Jamie. We have to hope that Marcus Freeman's conversation is different than kind of what he presented at the press conference. That is often the case. You know what I mean? He's not going to tell us or the fans, or certainly not the opposition, what he's going to do, and he's not going to let everybody know there's a bunch of wholesale changes. He wants everybody confused, right? And so he's not going to tell you what he's going to do. So I wouldn't read too much into it. But Jamie, when I look at this Arkansas game, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, they lost to Memphis. Isn't that funny?" Now what you have is a coaching staff that's coaching for their lives. That's what it is. I mean, Arkansas is coaching for their lives, because if you look at who they play after Notre Dame, at Tennessee, then A&M, then Auburn, Mississippi State, at LSU, at Texas, Missouri.
Yeah.
You're not going to win very many of those. No, you're already 2-2. If you beat Notre Dame at home, that's going to be something that gives you some clout to maybe keep your job if you just play well down the stretch here. But if you lose to Notre Dame and then you have that gauntlet of a schedule afterwards, you're not going to be there the next year. You're just not. And so the Memphis game, well, it was interesting to watch. We needed Arkansas to win that game. They did not. And now this coaching staff, they're in a must-win situation. They just are. And so the reason that scares me is because if I'm Petrino, or if I'm the head coach, if I'm anybody, I'm saying, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm throwing caution to win. Yeah, I'm throwing the kitchen sink at him, because we're not going to be around anyway if it doesn't work. You know what I mean? And that's not a good situation to be in. Your thoughts here, and let's talk about the game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you look at through his first 5 seasons, Sam Pittman is 30-31, and he was, before this season versus the SEC. I mean, if you include the Ole Miss game this year, he's 14-29 versus the SEC. So, I mean, everybody's kind of looking at he's going to get fired anyways. And then if they lose this game and they start 2-3, and like you said, he's getting fired. So it's this is a game they need to win, that he needs to win. Maybe he doesn't care. He's old. He just wants to get his
check and get out. Yeah.
Get out. That might be the case. But I have a feeling Petrino still wants to, call play somewhere next year, and based on the SEC, someone will give him a chance despite his history. And the thing is that Arkansas, they are they've been very good on offense. And I think they are very good. Like Taylor Green, he's got a chance to be where before people kind of saw him as maybe this guy's going to be they're going to move him to tight end or something in the NFL, because he's a really great athlete, but not that great of a passer, and he's really improved in a lot of way. He's like last year he got sacked 32 times, and their line is better this year. But he's way better at like throwing the ball away and like not like holding it onto it to try to force plays as much. He's a dangerous runner. He's got a big time arm. He can make every kind of throw that that you want to. He's an elite athlete for the position. 97th percentile acceleration, 96th percentile speed for a quarterback. That's pretty darn good. He had a 43-foot 5-inch triple jump in high school. He's a stud. But the one thing that he does do is he'll throw you the ball. He'll throw the defense the ball, and he's 8th, right? He's got the 8th highest turnover worthy percentage out of all Power 4 passers this year.
And guess when he does it? When pressured. When pressured. When teams pressure him, he makes mistakes. Anybody home? Anybody home? All right, go ahead. Sorry.
And he's thrown 4 picks. He's thrown 4 picks. He threw 2 picks in this Memphis game that were big. Big mistakes. And they obviously, fumbled the ball away at the end of the game too. But they have like 2 big backs that could get downhill. They have speed at receiver. Not quite the same as A&M speed, but Omega Blake he can run. He's a stud. He's fast. They got 2 really good tight ends.
Yes.
Yeah, Jaden Platt, who was a guy who was at A&M last year, and he's a freak athlete. He's a guy who was like a 34-inch vert, 128 broad jump in high school. He's explosive athlete. This Rohan Jones kid, sorry, Mike, I got to do it. He's Canadian.
Yeah.
He's Canadian.
He's a good player, though. Good player.
He's really good. He was FCS All-American last year. And anyone who watched the Memphis game noticed him.
Yeah,
he's a really good athlete.
Yes.
And, and they're solid up front. They're way better up front. Their left side of their line is very good. They got maybe not as good at some of the other areas, but they're just if Notre Dame was playing as good a defense as they were last year, Arkansas would still put up points. That's kind of where they're at with how Notre Dame has played defense this year. I mean, they're probably going to put up a lot of points on Notre Dame, and really the key to the game for Notre Dame's defense is probably going to be like causing enough havoc, getting them to make enough mistakes to do it. And they weren't good on 3rd down in this game. That was a road. They were on the road at Memphis. Why Arkansas agrees to home and home for Memphis, beyond me. But they're on the road, so it's a little bit different. The last 2 games were on the road. It's going to be a friendlier environment, obviously, but 3rd down, which Notre Dame has actually surprisingly been decent on 3rd down this year. It's 1st down where they're getting killed, but they need to cause turnovers. And when Taylor Green is great, they win.
Protect him.
When he is just good to bad, but he hasn't been bad. He's been good all year. They're beatable. Right? They're beatable. So that's the one thing. And the big thing though is their defense, which was horrific last year against the pass. And they're better because they improved. They got some good DBs in the portal, and they're better there. And they've but they have gave up 9 passing plays of 20+ yards in the last 2 games. And the run defense is atrocious.
Yeah, it is.
They're bad. They're bad. They don't have they're not good enough up front D-line wise.
Bad
linebackers, bad tacklers. They don't have enough speed. They don't have enough speed on defense. And frankly, that's if you're watching like the Purdue game and you look at like, man, these guys just can't run with those. That's the same kind of thing. Now, I think they're better than Purdue athlete wise, but still, like they have a lot of holes, and they're not. And they had some injuries that they were dealing with too. The run defense, 107th in EPA per rush, 127th in rushing success rate. Like, it's kind of a bad thing to be when you're playing Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, right? So, and then I think too, because of that, you that's what we talked about before. They overcompensate to try to stop the run, and then you can hit them over the top and all that too. So I do think Notre Dame is going to score a bunch of points on them. Like, I think that's it. And it really, what it's probably going to come down to in the end is, who makes more big plays on offense and who makes enough plays on defense to turn the ball over, create turnovers, who makes the least amount of mistakes on offense.
All right, we're going to get the monger on here because I got a question for both of you. But I agree 100%. I look, you're going to have, if you pressure this kid, you're going to have a chance to win this game. If you play like Purdue, I shouldn't say you should win this game if you pressure him and keep him off his thing. If you try and play like you did against Purdue, this is going down to the wire. It absolutely is. It's just they have too much to play for. There's going to be kitchen sink plays, and you're going to have to disrupt this guy in order for to take the fight out of this team. I think if you take it to them early, they'll quit. I just think they'll quit. I think that they, I really do. So that's my question to you. Marcus Freeman always defers. Me, I take the ball. I take the ball because I have confidence that this team's going to score on that first drive. I take the ball. What do you do, Greg?
I defer. I always defer. I see what you're saying, and I take your point because I do think you're right. If Notre Dame scores first, here's the thing though. Like, they scored first against A&M, and then we kind of saw how that all went, like they need to be good. Like, they've gotten fast starts and lost, like they had a fast start against Purdue, and then Purdue came back and scored again. And then it just kind of feels like, you're back to square one. The game is tied, like they have to figure it out on defense. They have to get their defense figured out no matter what. I always like the ball coming out of second half because you're either extending a lead or you're either coming back from a deficit or whatever time thing it is, And like, I don't like the idea of an offense having, like against Miami, where it's like they went a long time without touching the ball. The offense tied the game against Miami. The next time they get the ball, they're down 14. I don't like that. Right. So I always want to defer and get the ball start second half.
I take the ball. Go ahead.
I'm always team defer to, because even though I totally agree, you have way more confidence in the offense. It's just the chance of stealing an extra possession, right? Where you get that, if you defer, I always look at it from that perspective. And I'll say too, in this game, that is another thing. Stealing possessions, and not just turning the ball over. Special teams like Purdue, great job. They run the trick play. One thing I would say about the defense, I know Purdue's offense, bad red zone offense. They can't run the ball, whatever. They only scored on a trick play in the red zone. That's something positive to build on. That They kicked field goals the other two times. But they stole the possession and they got 3 points out of it where they ran the fake punt. Like, Notre Dame last year, just no matter what, they had it at the right moment. Well, this is the kind of game where if you've been saving it, you do it. You really got to do it. Or, what? As much as whatever, Tyler Buckner, it's a rough one at the end of the A&M game. A fake field goal, like something. There's got to be something there where you can steal points, because in this game, I think it is going to matter. I think it is going to matter because there isn't going to be a point in the game where if Notre Dame is down double digits or Arkansas is down double digits, where the game is over.
No,
the
I
game
agree.
is just it's going to just you have to just keep foot on the pedal the whole time, and it could just flip like that.
That's why I take the ball, because you want to put pressure on this defense and you want to put pressure on this offense. And if you go down and score right away, that lets them know, especially if the way I think they're going to score, which is just dominate them, because I don't think their run defense can handle Notre Dame. I think their pass defense, and I think Notre Dame offense is in a sync right now that's very, very impressive. If you go down there and you score and you say, okay, game on, they're going to start feeling the pressure. I think that they will cave to the pressure more than Notre Dame will, because I think that they have the better culture and more to play for. So I think for me, that's why I would take the ball, score, put a lot of pressure on them, especially that defense. Because look, Purdue, we all watched the Purdue game and we all sat there and was appalled by what was going on with the offense or with the defense. But I never had any thought that they were going to lose the game because the offense was just coming and there was nothing they could do. And if you constantly keep that pressure on the defense, and then especially if the offense makes a mistake along the way, and you continue to score like that, there's nothing they can do. And that wears on your constitution as a defense and as an offense. And so that's why I do it. I totally agree. Almost any other time, I'm all for deferring. I'm all for deferring. But to me, that's the way I would play. But I'm aggressive. I've always been aggressive. You guys are defenders. You just defenders.
You're go for a throw kind of guy, man.
That's right, man. Always been, man. Always been. All right, guys. I mean, I'll tell you this, and I know a lot of Irish fans are upset, and I understand why, and I'm upset, and if you read my commentary after the game, this just shouldn't have happened. It just shouldn't be, but it is. But I saw enough on Saturday at the end to where I felt like, you know what, if they just get this right on defense, they're going to be a very difficult team to beat. I don't care who they play. If they can just figure this out on defense and just start plugging some holes, they're going to be tough because this offense is going to score 40 on about anybody. They just are. They're going to score 40 on about anybody. And we'll see. And then at some point you'll have Jugasaw back and somebody gets hurt. That's, certainly a good positive thing as well. So, they have a kind of a nace in the hole once Jugasaw gets back to where if somebody gets hurt up front, you're not dead in the water. So, I know a lot of Irish fans are upset and frustrated and this and that, but I can see things are starting to turn the way that we want them to turn. Any last comments from you guys and we'll shut down the show?
Yeah, I think, 100% I agree with where the offense, and I think it's headed, right? I just think that there's still a lot of room for growth there. And even just with personnel wise, Jaden Greathouse and Will Pauling can offer a lot more than they've been able to offer so far, and that is, I think, largely on what you said with Carr, right? But and I really think too, if you look at this past game, Eli Raymond is a huge part of the first two games. He didn't have a target in this game.
Yeah.
And it kind of just shows where Notre Dame has the weapons where some days guys aren't going to get that much run, but you have enough weapons. And it's been rare for Notre Dame to have those kind of options. And I think when you do that, and I also think Mike Denbrock is a really good football coach, and they're going to really do a lot of good things. So I'm not at all confident in the defense kind of turning it around to being good. I don't know about that. I think it might be impossible actually at this point for that to happen. Can they be significantly better? Yeah, I think that's possible. And if that happens, they can beat anyone in the schedule.
Yeah, I think it's just, the offense, you guys kind of hit on it. They've been as good as we could have imagined at this point. And especially versus the opponents. So that's a credit to them. Defensively, I do think we have to take heed in what Marcus talked about with his first couple games at Notre Dame. It took him a while to find his groove. It did. And when he did, things turned around for that 2021 defense. And you just have to hope that Chris Ash can do the same thing, right? He's clearly trying to find answers. And Marcus Freeman talked about that against Purdue, where it's they ran all these different coverages at the end of the half. He's trying to find answers, and you just hope that he can find a groove to where he gets comfortable with something and he develops a better feel for how to call things. Because I just think that's absent. It's not there right now. He doesn't have it right now. He doesn't have a feel for when to call things or what's going to work. He doesn't really have a good feel for his personnel, which is unfortunate in the back end because they've had so many injuries. He hasn't been able to build game over game over game. You got a mash unit out there against Purdue. That makes it very difficult. You got to get your top guys back. You got to get Moore back. You got to get Smith back. You get Schuler and Johnson with Christian Gray. They can build off something from there. You just got to hope it happens, because right now it's not it, and it's not going to work, and it may never for this year.
They're going to have to change the way they do things defensively from what we've seen. If they're going to be a good defense, you cannot play this way. You just can't. And I just don't see this team ever improving by running the type of things that we saw against Purdue. I just don't see that ever happening. You can't play that vanilla and expect to beat good teams. You're not going to beat USC playing like that. You're just not. So I'm sure they know that. I'm sure they're going to go and address it. Also wanted to say thanks to everybody who came into the chat. The chat's really picking up. We're getting a lot of people who are participating live during the show, which is great. And they always get some great comments in there. Thanks for everybody to come and do that. Also, if you like the show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you'd share the show, the YouTube content, or maybe even the podcast. Share it with your other Notre Dame friends. We'd certainly appreciate that as well, trying to grow the channel and the podcast as much as we can. So appreciate your help with that. That's going to be it. We will talk to you next week on Power Hour.